My main area of expertise has been, and perhaps always has been, the ocean freight trade. I started works in the Port of London, known as Port of Tilbury. So ocean freight has always been my first love, and continue it to this day. The fact that I then moved over to Hong Kong, which was at the time the biggest ocean port in the world, until it was overtaken by the main China ports as change goes by. So ocean freight's my expertise. And why is it important for the future? Well, I think the figure is often quoted these days that more than 90% of world trade is carried by ocean. And that's where we all get our consumer goods. That's where we get all of our products that all of us in the world consume. So ocean freight, I've always seen it as a very valid role. I happen to make it my hobby as well, but I do see it as being extremely important to the global commerce. I started in the freight business in 1979 down at the Port of London, and this was after having started out a career as a banker. And I thought, bank is a very good job. I get to wear a nice smart suit. It's a very clean environment, and it's going to be great. But unfortunately, I actually found it very dull, very dry. I found my job in the docks, because the job description said must have clean driving license. I'll never forget that. And I thought, if that says must have, it means you probably end up with a company car. And like all young men and young ladies of the day, a company car was the most desirable thing to have. And I went to work in the docks there in '79. And it was completely change of scenery from working in the bank. Back in those days, the part that really I enjoyed, I loved so much, still to this day, was the network that I found myself in, working in the docks, where everybody in those days were physically moving documents, customs clearances, what we used to call out-of-charge notes, many documents around the docks, in the dock community, whereby we had to drop them off. We had to go to Port Health, we had to go to customs, had to go to the shipping line to take bills of lading and write checks out to get release. And some years later along came the fax machine, and it was a revelation to have a fax machine that we could put a piece of paper into a machine and press a button, and this image would appear after a little rumbling and noise about 30 or 40 miles away, and this would give us customs clearance. I didn't have to drive 30, 40 miles anymore through horrific traffic to get my customs goods cleared. So can you imagine those people that, so familiar now with just doing an email attachment, what we thought that fax was an amazing thing. So you see, having been in this industry all these decades, the technology, how it's speeded things along from what we used to have to do face to face, now we can do in seconds halfway around the world, not just within a dock community. So that's what I enjoyed so much. By the time I got to Hong Kong in 93, 94, that was only then I got to use my first PC. I had to be showed by my mentor, who was a man in his 60s, how to use a PC, which is kind of embarrassing, really, because I was supposed to be the young guy coming along, but never had to use a PC. But this was typical Hong Kong for you. Hong Kong gets things done. So there was a man, far advanced in years to me, but knew all the latest technology. He even wrote software. So really, that's one of my big takeaways, is the fact that it was still the shipping business. Still to this day is very much the network. It's not just what you know, it's definitely who you know. It's been a fantastic career over 40 years, knowing all of those people that have developed their own careers, whether they work for shipping lines, dock companies, hauliers, customs, and all of us agents, and whether you're an air freight or an ocean freight or a road haulage expert, those of us that have stayed in this business 40 years like I have, there's a lot of old friends out there, a lot of old friends. And the nice thing is I'm still enjoying my work to this day, and I'm working with some of those people from 20, 30 and even 40 years ago, and we still all enjoy it. Yeah, maybe I'm crazy. Certainly. I mean, really, apart from the fact that ocean freight is really a passion of mine, I really do enjoy the ocean shipping industry. I still get excited when I see a container going along the road. Anybody else just sees a big metal tin box, probably causing a traffic jam. I'm more looking at the size of the container, where it come from, which shipping line it belongs to. So, of course, moving to Hong Kong was the epitome of my career, because Hong Kong is such a live wire. The place is just, they used to say it's like Hong Kong is like New York on speed. If that's not inappropriate to say, this place has got so much energy. It's so condensed and so can-do attitude. This is what you find in Hong Kong. People working, from 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight. I still see this to this day. I get up, I do my work early in the morning to try and be nice to my team in Hong Kong and, let's say Shanghai and places. And these guys are still working at, 2 and 3 the next morning. So this is what you find, in Hong Kong and throughout the rest of Asia, really, is this vibrancy, this energy of people want to get things done and get things done quickly. So my first time in Hong Kong was before the old Kai Tak airport, and I was there with my parents in '86, and I can remember standing there just transiting through on the way to Singapore and seeing the planes. You could almost touch them, they were so low overhead. Bearing in mind that airport was in the middle of the city back in those days, so you've often seen, many people have seen this footage of the airplanes coming in through the buildings, and they really were coming through the buildings. And because I've lived in Hong Kong for a long time, my home airline has been Cathay Pacific, and I'm very fortunate enough to have sat, back in the days when you're allowed to, in the jump seat, flying back into Hong Kong, where you literally fly at this checkerboard in the mountain range that's been painted there, and the pilots literally aim for the checkerboard, turn their airplane 30 degrees right, and bank down into the airport. It's just unbelievable, and that is just part of Hong Kong. The rest is, everybody working there is probably been, especially in the expatriate community, you've probably been handpicked to be there. So everybody's got a can-do attitude. So, when you meet people, they want to achieve, they want to succeed as much as you do. Everything is yes, now what's the question? Likewise with the local workforce. I'm on video with the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, a fantastic body. I've done a fair bit of work with those guys. And again, I was more than happy to appear on their website to say just how hardworking the workforce is. You've got the use of the languages, you've got English, you've got Mandarin, various other second languages that everybody has. The can-do attitude, the skills, all the teams of young people I work with, very highly qualified, far more qualified than I. I had the experience and the connections. They all had academic qualifications to add to that as well. Not surprisingly, most of the people I've worked with over the years have gone on to do very well for themselves. They've all moved onwards and upwards in their careers, I'm pleased to say. I hope I had some help in mentoring them along the way. So, it goes beyond that. It's the weather is very kind, is warm most of the year. We still have 4 seasons, but they're not quite so as extreme as we get in the Northern Hemisphere, because you're in the tropics in Hong Kong. So we also had the city. So we've got the beauty of working in the city, where we can walk from building to building, and then we can have a drink after work very easily because everything's so close. But then it's made up of 400 islands. So Hong Kong's surrounded by crystal clear waters, beaches, mountains, and hiking. Hiking is everybody's passion. Get out on the weekend, get up into the mountains. It's free, which is very unusual in Hong Kong. Most things are very expensive. But it's a very, very vibrant, active, energetic society. And I recommend it to anybody. I'm missing it now. I can't be there right now because of the lockdown. But I would be back there tomorrow as soon as the flights open up. Hong Kong really and genuinely, in terms of a commercial centre, is and has been. It may be losing some of its place now, but like the head office of Asia. head office of Asia, because many companies, corporates and smaller companies choose to headquarter in Hong Kong. Why? Low tax base, very knowledgeable workforce, with English spoken as a first/second language. So many companies base themselves in Hong Kong for the legalities as well. So the Hong Kong law, known as the Basic Law, is based on English law and a blend of Chinese law that was thrashed out all the way back since 1979 until the handover in 1997. So there was a lot of work by lawyers to promulgate, as they say, this basic law. So this is why Hong Kong's been chosen as the headquarters for Asia. So that means many companies have their headquarters, so they need to have people working in those headquarters, and therefore my job was to go to work for those people in head office. So for example, I was sent out there to look after a number of British retailers who were buying their products from China, from Thailand, from Cambodia, but they still chose to have their office in Hong Kong. So my job was to get close to the senior management of those massive British retailers, and let's be sure, American retailers, Canadian retailers, German retailers, everybody had their head office for Asia sitting in Hong Kong. My job was to get alongside these people, find out what made them tick, how could my company serve them better, and I was better served being there in Hong Kong than I was at the end of the supply chain here in the UK. So that I went there to be at source, on the spot, looking after these people. So instead of getting an email overnight, I'm not happy about this, I was there in their office talking to the CEOs, the MDs, the VPs, directors of these companies, solving the problem before the problem happened. And then this is what we always talk about I've generally been more of a customer service type of guy, less the operations. I've done everything from operations, customer service, you name it. But the customer service has always been my role. It kind of fits my nature. My role would be to go beyond just serve, but anticipate. And this is the top of the pinnacle of the triangle when you're looking at customer service, is you get to that point of working together, and then you partner, and then you anticipate. And that was always my job too, and I'm doing it today. I'm working with some customers over here, big retailers, and I'm looking at the work they do. And of course, we have problems every day. It's my job to solve them. I then try to think of the next problem and solve it before it happens. And that's why I went to Hong Kong, to be on the spot, to be on the ground, understand what people's problems were, live it myself and solve it. And then solve it before it happened. Interesting you should say that. I talked about how much my industry is a network, and how it's. I did a lot of training in Hong Kong, certainly in my last few years acting as a consultant. It felt nice in a way. It's not just the fact that you've reached the seniority and whatever hair's left is grey that you can become a consultant, but you really have got 35 to 40 years of industry knowledge to give back to the young up and coming teams I was working for. And I remember, coming to that point, being asked a question. One of the most famous retailers in UK happens to have its head office, as I said before, in Hong Kong. And one of the questions would come out on day 2 or day 3. People would get a little bit off-piste with where we're going with the program and say, Ian, how do I get the best ocean freight rates? It was an obvious question they wanted to ask, how to get it. And I went back to my point, relationship. So you asked me the question about, where is the future of ocean shipping? And what did I do yesterday? I took time, this beautiful summer months of UK, to play golf, as one does, in the beautiful English countryside with my preferred shipping line. Just so happens that the COO, Europe, Middle East and Africa, of that shipping line is one of my oldest friends in the industry. He, like I, was a dock runner. We used to drive around the docks when we were 19 years old, bumping into each other many times, trying to get our documents in quickly. And my career's progressed in this direction. His career's progressed in that direction. He now runs a rather major shipping company. So when I meet with him, and we play with his senior management team, you can imagine I get some pretty deep insights into what's happening inside their companies and the challenges that face them and beset them. And the biggest problem right now, so take the right now and then project in the future, is the fact that because of COVID, everything was shut down. This led to this slowdown in demand, which meant that the ships for a period of time were sailing, I wouldn't say empty, but about 30 to 40% full. This obviously is not very economic. So the shipping lines had to do something. So they shrunk supply by taking out ships, a bit like a bus service, taking out every other ship, what we call a blank sailing. And then in most of the Northern Hemisphere, we had this break. We had the economy started opening up again. So now there's this huge surge of demand. And the demand came at just the point when there weren't enough vessels to carry it. It takes a long time to put those vessels back. You've got to think about these 90 to 100-day loops. It's called a service loop, when a vessel will start its voyage, either whether it's in Korea or Shanghai or Taiwan, and it work its way through Asia, down through Singapore. In my particular trade, it will then come through the Suez Canal, through the Mediterranean and into Northern Europe, Hamburg, Rotterdam, Felixstowe, Southampton. And these are about 90 to 100 days. So if you've now got this huge surge of demand of cargo that wasn't there before, but you've taken 20% of your capacity out, we've got this backlog backing up. And this is causing freight prices currently to surge at unbelievable. I mean, even to me, I just cannot ever have dreamt of how you say in North America, 6x and 7x times, or we say 5, 6 times, 7 times. But we are literally looking at 7 times the cost of a 40-foot container right now than it was in only December, which is only 6 months ago. I mean, really, who could think of this? There will be products that will not be shipped. I'm getting some customers now cancelling orders, saying it's just not viable. They can't put their prices up anymore. I suspect inflation in the major economies will go up dramatically in the next couple of months. I'm certainly fully expecting here in London to hear that the consumer retail price index will jump up several percentage points next month, because all these products, all the home furnishings everyone's buying for their gardens, enjoy the outdoor weather. Everybody wants to ride a bike these days because the weather's pleasant again. The price of these items are going through the roof. I mean, really through the roof. This is not your average $1,000 GRI. We're talking, as I say, 5, 6 and 7x on the freight pricing. So where's this all going in the future? Well, right now the ship lines saw a report today from Journal of Commerce, our very respected industry journal, and Lloyd's List, which is also one of our most respected journals, that the EBIT profitability of the collective shipping lines will exceed $15 billion during this year, which is a fantastic coup if you're a shipping line. And it must be said, you've got to read this against the backdrop that they've made huge losses in previous years while they've been trying to manage their capacity from supply and demand, and it's not been very well done. Usually the boot has been on the other foot. It's been a buyer's market for years and years. Shipping lines often post losses of $500 million, $2 billion, and now they're making billions. Billions. It's just insane. So the future, the flip side of this comment of where we've been, where we are, where we're going is, certainly it looks like it's going to be a very stable time for shipping lines for the next probably 3 to 5 years. There is always that danger that the shipping lines collectively, because they're not allowed to collude, they cannot cooperate because this is antitrust. So it could be the case that they decide to build ever bigger, newer ships. The reason the shipping lines build bigger, newer ships, not just to get more containers on board, but usually like when you buy a car, when you change your car, even 3 or 4 years later, the new engine is much more efficient than the last one. And one of the biggest cost factors in running a ship is the cost of the fuel. So if you're running a much more energy efficient ship, or a hybrid, or one that runs on gas as opposed to heavy oil, this makes sense to keep changing your vessels. Now, what's happened in the past is the vessel got ever bigger, and everybody was buying bigger ships at the same time, and the supply and demand gradients got out of place. So I think for the next 3 or 4 years there'll be some stability. I think the shipping lines will be enjoying unprecedented profitability, but it also means that the market, the retailers, the wholesalers, the end consumer is going to have to expect to pay more. I don't think these prices will jump back to where they were 6 months ago. I think they will fall back only at the end of this coming peak season, but they'll only probably fall back to just under half where they are now. I mean, that's a hell of a prediction for me to make, but I have to make such a prediction. I'm not always right. I'm usually got a good feel for the market, but no, I feel we'll be looking at, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 40-foot rates, both for the going across the Trans-Pacific, but for my main trade, the Asia-Europe trade, we'll be looking at these prices, which really we haven't seen for decades. This is what makes the whole thing so interesting. This is a real dynamic here. Not many people, a man in the street, the average shopper does not think, especially your online shoppers these days, they don't think where these products are coming from. Until, like my wife, who is a regular online shopper, tries to buy something and it's not in stock, and it's not in stock, and it's not in stock. And this is the epitome of the market we're in right now. It's so hard. There's not enough space. There's not enough ships. There's not enough containers, empty containers in the right places to bring your cargo to the traditional market. So this is where we are right now. Going forward, yes, as I say, I think very good and stable times for the shipping lines, which is good. It means they can put more investment back into their equipment, into their ships, into their training, into their systems. But I still believe in the future that the business will still rely somewhat on networks, relationships, people. As much as there are many people out there who advocate that everything can be done by artificial intelligence and systems. I'm not a great believer in that. I could be a dinosaur, I admit that, after 40 years of business, but I still am a great believer that people are a great differentiator in this industry.